Welcome back, I'm Captain Xavier, and since it's Memorial Day, I'm taking the day off from doing Nerf stuff and doing Lego stuff instead. I'm trying to get my Lego room organized, and I have these armies all over the place, and I need to get them filmed and shown off so that I can then put them in storage until the war comes. So, let's take a look. These are all royal armies. I was looking through my village and discovered I had lots and lots of peasants, but I had no nobility. So I went on eBay and went to look and see how many different noble-type characters were out there, you know, lords and ladies and kings and queens and that sort of thing, and came up with a surprising number. The first one are these guys, which are the minifig series king and queen with the really fancy robes and cloaks and all of that. And so I decided to build an army around them made up primarily of the figures I couldn't find any other place for. So these particular sergeanty looking fellows, I didn't have any other good faction to put them in, so I threw them in there. And the crossed axemen, which I was planning to use as the city guard, which I may still do, and then a lot of extra scale armor guys from, I didn't have enough black helmets to put them in the Black Knight's army, and the scale armor is fairly universal. And then of course we've got a freckle-faced squire here, and then the main knight. There's usually a good main knight if it will focus. There we go. So that was that one. This is one that it never actually existed as a faction within the Lego universe, but I created it nonetheless. The next one, this was the second royal faction that came out after the original Crusaders when they came back with a new castle line. They went with these guys. And they had kind of a cartoony-looking lion face on them instead of the more traditional heraldic lion rampant. And I was never a huge fan of it, but I really liked all the other castle stuff that was coming out in this line, so I ended up with a lot of them. The thing I ended up with an inordinate number of was the original king from this line. And I ended up with so many of them that I ended up using them to create infantry. So all of these guys were originally the king. That's the torso for the king, but I decided to make infantry out of them, and then I had regular infantry and then archers in the background. And they came out with a different king at some point with one of the newer castles when it came out, and the fancier shield there and all that. And then this guy, I painted this armor many years ago because I wanted a gold knight. I think because I'd seen Excalibur, and there was the bad guy in the gold armor, and, you know. So yeah, this was the second royal faction. This one actually was an official faction, had castles and all that. Then we get into, I believe these were the ones that were around during the fantasy era with the orcs or the trolls and the dwarves. And their symbol was a crown for the most part, but there was some lion emblem still in there a little bit. But for the most part, it was the crown, which was pretty cool. So most of these guys have the crown logo on their gear somewhere, on a belt buckle or a breastplate or something like that. And I really like the dark blues that they put into this line. They didn't have any of the red. It was all dark blues. And we had a queen and a king. And I don't know if these were both actual kings in this line, but I ended up with both of these. One of them had the royal-looking breastplate and the crown that matched, and then a more royal with, you know, the fur-looking stuff and the necklace and all of that. So I decided to go have two kings. I don't know if they're brothers or murder. Well, they're brothers or just really old father and son pair. Who knows? Because they both have white beards. So who knows? Anyway, really like this faction. I love the color scheme. And then the final one was the Knight's Kingdom, where they went back to the lion rampant, which I really, really like. This one is even more heraldically accurate than the original one. Very detailed, and I like it. And they had both a old king and queen and a young king and queen. So I would, obviously, king and queen and probably, you know, prince and princess, the royal, you know, next in line. And these guys had really cool knights. And I don't know, some of these are actually, I think, knights from the minifigure line, but I decided to throw them in with these guys just because it looked so good. But they had the Crusader-style helmets, the great helms, as opposed to the visored helmets, or the older style kind of grilled jousting helmets, like this one. And then these ones also, of course, as you notice, they have the more metallic-looking helmets, which is really kind of neat. Yeah, we got the guys in the back with just the lion head. They don't have the full rampant lion. which is, I think, kind of neat. And then there's some really fancy scale or chain type armor, and the really fancy breastplates and the leg armor for those guys. And of course, the usual thing, we'll have infantry and then archers in the back, because I like doing that. There may end up being more cavalry at some point. These knights would probably, the ones in the middle would probably actually be cavalry, or, possibly dismounted heavy infantry, but depending on the situation, they might well be mounted. The same with some of the knights in all of the other factions, just because, cavalry's neat. But it takes up too much room on the base plates to have too many horses, so I just put the kings generally on the base plate. So those are the other royal factions. Obviously, these guys will all be aligned in the big war. It's some of the other factions that we're not sure where they're going to fall, and those are the ones that we will cover next. So stay tuned!